Firefighters are trained to enter difficult circumstances to rescue people. That is their job. Their job isn't just to quench the fire where possible. Their job mainly is to rescue people that can't rescue themselves. But their job is not to rescue those that have chosen to perish. Let me repeat that. Firefighters' main job is to rescue people that can't rescue themselves. That's why someone needs to be rescued, because they can't rescue themselves. If they could rescue themselves, they wouldn't need to be rescued. But firefighters are not appointed, nor trained, nor sent out to rescue those that are dedicated to perish. What I mean, let me give an example. If there's a library, for example, and the library is on fire, it's not an antique library, just a modern library with modern day books. So it's not as if that library contains treasures from the past. It's just a modern day library. So all the books there are printed in the last 10 years. Well, let's say you have a librarian who worked at that library, and she is so invested in that building. Why? Because she's avoiding reality. She has no friends, only a few social contacts, and she has a bad sex life with her partner because she's awkward. So she spends her days at the library. It has become her home, kind of. One day, the building is burning down, and everyone needs to leave. So firefighters come and rescue people. But later, it came out that this librarian died. And then the partner of the librarian filed a lawsuit against the corpse of firefighters that were sent to rescue people. And before the judge, one of the firefighters, that's I don't know how they call it in the brigade, but the head of that squad told the judge, "Your Honor, my men went in to rescue everyone, as we're trained to do. When it became obvious that the flames could not be quenched on time, we forced people to get out of the building. We didn't ask them, we forced them out. There was this one woman who attacked us with objects. She even pushed some of us in the flames because she refused to give up the building that was perishing. So, according to our protocol, which is laid down in the law, we had to consider our own safety. Because if we, the firefighters, who are sent to rescue people, are trapped, then who is going to rescue the people? So it was a very hard decision for us. However, we had to obey our protocol. We left because this woman would not comply with safety. She was the dangerous one over there. And later, after investigation was done, it was concluded that the fire was not an accident. Someone tended the fire, but it could not be proven who did it. Now, there was a suspicion that it was the woman, the librarian that perished there, that did it, because she did not want to face her life, so she rather perished than to face herself. But she did it in such a way that she would remove herself together with what she loved, that means the library. Now, I know this parable is quite weird, but weird parables are sharp to keep you alert. What I'm saying here is that as a believer, you need to realize that there are people that are dedicated to self-destruction. Look, there are people that need help. Or if they were able to walk in a solution by themselves, they wouldn't need help. But then there are people where you need help to be delivered from them. Let me say it like this. There are endangered people, and because they are endangered and need help, let's say you are in a building and the building's on fire. You don't notice it's on fire. You couldn't notice it. But now suddenly the flames catch one of the gas tubes in the building. Now there's an explosion, sudden explosion. You didn't cause the fire. You didn't contribute to it. It's just a dangerous situation. You couldn't help it. So now you need to be rescued. The same way there are people out there, they become the target of scapegoating. They become the target of psychic violence, or anyway they encounter situations that they didn't cause, but they're just in a bad situation now. And there are people that grew up in a toxic household, and that's why their thinking is not right, so they end up in bad relationships. So there are people out there that need help. They need to be rescued. That's obvious. But listen to what I'm saying. Once it becomes obvious to the individual that they need to be rescued, they need to align themselves with reality and walk or run, or best yet run, towards the exit. Let me give an example. Let's say you have a young lady and she fell for a guy, and now she's so into the guy. Everything is about this guy. She doesn't talk much to other people, not even her friends. It's all about this guy. What's going on? She has a deficit in her emotions that she hopes this guy will fill. So it's not love, it's an addiction. She thinks it's love, but it's an addiction. So she's so involved with this guy. But this guy, he is a drug addict and he is physically violent. So over time, it becomes obvious to everyone around the couple that the man is out of line, that the man is dangerous. Now eventually, one day, the guy hit her to the ground and she had to spend the night in the hospital. She told the people at the hospital that she fell from the stairs. The people at the hospital doubted the story, but because there was no evidence for them to point out that it was domestic violence, they kept themselves out of the situation. And that's reasonable because he had other patients to focus on. She realized from that point on, this man is dangerous. She realized it way too late. Now, when she realized it way too late, it's her responsibility now to acknowledge the danger of the situation and to seek a way out of the situation as soon as possible. And remember, she's not a child. She's not someone in their teens with less to no financial means. She's a grown woman with a social network, despite that she doesn't talk that much with other people, so she has options. There are also shelter homes out there. She can call the cops. She should now face the situation and do what is required of her. That means regarding her own safety and the safety of those around her. Let's say now that this woman refuses to face the situation. Instead, she tricks her own mind into believing that it's all fine as long as she works hard, as she makes enough effort. However, this trick on your own mind will not work. After a few days, your natural sense keeps poking at you and reveals to you you need to get out of this situation. Now, when someone beyond this point keeps on persisting in the situation because they're so invested in their escape, because it's all escapism, they don't want to face reality, so they are invested in denial. So the moment someone becomes invested in denial, they now want to trick others into denial also. Because if they are invested in denial and those around them are realistic, the realistic attitude of those around them will shatter the denial they are invested in. So it's not that much that other guy that she is invested in, it's in her own denial. So she now wants others to assist her in her denial. That is the quote-unquote help she's looking for, which is not real help to begin with. She will talk about the domestic violence. She will ask people to help her out, but it's not genuine. It's not sincere. She doesn't mean it. Why? Because the help she's looking for is to be enabled in her denial. She just wants relief from danger instead of being delivered from the danger. The danger is that relationship. And what keeps her in the relationship is her denial. So she must forfeit that denial so that she can walk away from the relationship. Because once she's out of the relationship, there's no physical nor mental danger anymore. But because she is invested in denial, she's now sponsoring the danger and she's endangering herself. So because she endangers herself and she keeps it going, she now becomes a danger unto others. Listen to what I'm saying here. Listen, believer. Anyone who endangers themselves due to denial, they have become a danger unto others. Because such people will say one thing while they mean the other. And even when they say what they mean, they don't really mean it. Because what they really want is relief and control. Both that they can't get because the relief they receive is short-lived. So they become addicts that will play the victim to get your sympathy. And here's where it gets dangerous. The moment someone is tricked into giving them sympathy, but let's say this individual is realistic and sincere and decent, and this individual tells her, look, you're going to a home shelter right now. This man's out of his mind. You deserve better. Let's say you have someone with a good heart, with no ulterior motives, doing the right thing. And he or she is doing the right thing because she needs to get out of that relationship. And she said she wanted help. So if she said she wanted help and the situation is dangerous, it's logical for you to help her out, right? So now you have someone helping her out, and later she turns on the one to help her out, and she goes back to the dangerous guy, complaining about the one who so-called wanted to rescue her, and now she claims that she never wanted to be rescued to begin with, and now you have 2 against 1. Now she turned on the rescuer, as well as the one she had to be rescued from also turns on the rescuer. So now the rescuer has 2 against the rescuer, 2 against himself, 2 against herself, and both the violator, that means the perpetrator, as well as the target of the violence, they're now in unity against the rescuer, who was there to stop and shut down the violence. So in this case, the target has also become a perpetrator, together with the main perpetrator against the rescuer. And now, if they are able, they will now lie on the rescuer, and now people around will believe the accusations of the perpetrators against the rescuer. So now the rescuer will have a whole group against him or against her. They will say things like, this woman here interferes in our marriage. She thinks she has the right to violate our privacy and all of that. And because the people around them are so invested in those BS concepts of privacy and private lives, people will defend their investment in those concepts by also turning on the rescuer. Even though privacy, private lives, and all those concepts are fake, they're non-existent, people, because they invest in it, they will enable everyone that promotes those values. Well, values, they're not really values, they are concepts that are fake. So now the rescuer, who did the right thing, is in danger. Why? Because the target didn't want to face reality, and she now became a perpetrator also. This is what Christ meant with shaking the dust off your feet. Yes, believers are here to shut down evil. We don't remove evil from the earth, we shut it down. Evil will be removed by God himself when he returns and he deports the reprobates to the lake of fire. Meanwhile, we shut down operations of the enemy, and we shut down reprobate people. Not by violence, but by the power of the Holy Spirit. That's what we do. The moment we notice that a population enables harm, because they don't want to do what is right, the moment that happens, we move away. Why? Because sooner or later, they will project their blame onto you and they will fake as if you are the perpetrator. And then they will all join on the hate wagon against you. Don't let it happen. You don't want that to happen. You don't have to put up with that. Always look at the context. Just because someone asks for help doesn't mean they really want help. Let me repeat that. Just because someone asks for help doesn't mean they really want help. What they mean with help is enable me to escape the consequences of my own inconsistency. That's what they mean with help. They want to be enabled. The moment you come with real solutions, the moment you are constructive, they become upset with you. So, one way to deter dangerous people and dangerous circumstances is to be constructive. Whenever you're dealing with people, always be constructive. Always. What I mean with constructive is you look at the situation and you look at what can be done for the good. And you only focus on that. You acknowledge the bad, but you focus on what can be done for the good. Or how can you turn a bad situation around for good? Be constructive. The moment you remain constructive all the time, people that are dangerous will get fed up with you, they'll begin to accuse you, and they'll leave. Why? Because they don't want to be constructive, because they are destructive, and they have no interest at all in facing themselves. That's why they are destructive. So when you remain constructive, they now will feel intimidated and invaded by you. You didn't intimidate them, nor did you invade them, but they will project these accusations onto you when you are constructive. You didn't force your advice onto them. You didn't force them to do anything. You just suggested a good outcome. And you keep on doing that. The moment you keep on doing that, you'll see they'll come with accusations. And the moment that happens, you know that this individual is dangerous. And that's how you cause them to leave you. And when they leave you, they leave with their danger. So when they leave with their danger, let them go with their danger. It's not your fault, nor can you be blamed for them holding on to danger. So yes, you should have empathy, should have sympathy, should be willing to assist others and help others out. Yes, those are human good values. What is also a human good value is common sense and being realistic. Just like in the parable I gave at the beginning of this video. You had this individual who refused to be rescued, who refused to comply with safety. She endangered others who needed a rescue. Look at this. She endangered others who needed a rescue. She wanted to remain in that library, knowing that the library was burning down, knowing it was a dangerous situation, but instead of helping others finding a way to escape, she now hindered others from being rescued. If she at least would have helped others to escape while remaining suicidal, people still say, well, she was suicidal, but at least she cared about the well-being of those around her. But people that are suicidal often, they can't care about others' well-being because they're so focused on themselves. Not saying that those that commit suicide were selfish, narcissistic brats, but people that are so self-destructive that they rather end their lives, they often have no capacity in their mind to consider others. Doesn't mean they're bad people, but in that state of mind, you're not functioning properly. Obviously not. But in this case, not only you have someone that's suicidal, but you have someone who is, how would I say it? Someone turned into a terrorist. She didn't want to face things. And when the situation became so dangerous that it became her doom, she wanted others in her misery. She longed to have misery. No. I said it the wrong way. She longed for company in her misery. She was in misery because that misery was the result of her not wanting to face things, and now she wanted validation and relief. She wanted validation of her way of thinking, and she wanted relief from the bad consequences of the way of thinking. So she wanted supply from others, narcissistic supply. Her craving for narcissistic supply was so deep that she hindered others from being rescued. She didn't care that those other people had families, spouses, relatives, or children, or a community that depended on them. She was only focused on her own relief. So when the firefighters came to force people out, she resisted and she attacked the firefighters. And this is something that often happens in the world believer. It can be that you walk in. You didn't even enforce anything yet, because as a believer, you have a God-given right to enforce the good on the earth. Yes, you do. That's why you walk in His power, so that when people come against you with resistance, the power you walk in will deal with them. Sometimes you walk into a place, you haven't enforced anything yet, and already people are attacking and fighting you. Why? Because they are invested in the lie. And they want others in the lie so that they are comfortable in the lie. Know your word, believer. Learn to shake the dust off your feet. I'm not saying you shouldn't go the extra mile for your community, nor for others. You should go the extra mile for your community and for others, as long as you obey the protocol of Christ. Christ Himself shook the dust off His feet when He realized that people wanted to remain invested in the lie. The moment you are invested in the lie, whatever lie it is, you have become a perpetrator of violence. You are now a stakeholder of danger, and you are now endangering others. The moment you become dangerous, Christ removes Himself from around you. The believer can never become dangerous, because the believer has the Holy Spirit inside of them that chastises them if they are heading in the wrong direction. Those that resist Christ will eventually become dangerous. And when that happens, God goes no contact. So when God goes no contact, why should you stay there? Why should you stay there? If God Himself, the Lord, goes no contact because someone is not reliable nor trustworthy, then why do you remain in a trustworthy and reliable relationship with that individual if God Himself removed Himself from that individual? What I mean with removing Himself, I don't say that God abandons an individual, but God refuses to interact nor deal with an individual that's chosen to be His enemy. When you choose to be God's enemy by enabling and persisting in danger, God will not remain in communication with you. He will go no contact to reveal unto others what you have become, so that others are warned about you. So believers, obey Christ's protocol. Never, ever just believe someone when they say they want help. Look at the context. Look if there's a pattern. If there's a pattern of dysfunction and the individual doesn't want to see the pattern, then shake the dust off your feet. For real. There are many unbelievers out there that died because they became the target while they were the rescuers. It often happens that the rescuer, who's there to do the right thing, becomes the target. Does it mean now that we shouldn't do the right thing? We should do the right thing, but there are times we ought to do the best thing. And the best thing often is to just shake the dust off your feet and move on. Now that's what I'm telling you now. Do what's best above what is right. I agree with Christ.